Throughout his time on the internet, Daniel Larson, for all the world to see, has done next to nothing except ruin whatever reputation he ever once had and will continue to ruin whatever reputation he had left as he has been left to literally roam about the wilderness completely to his own devices. And considering his track record, that's not really a good sign. It is actually, let's put it this way, it is a recipe for disaster. But let's back up 30 seconds because who or what exactly is Daniel Larson? Or rather, perhaps, what makes a Daniel Larson? How exactly does he get that way? Well, let's look into the process, shall we? To begin with, special disclaimers, and this might take a bit of chaff to get through, but it's relatively important. Special message. This article is undergoing major edits to fix issues within. As a courtesy, please coordinate your edits by looking at the edit history and talking to other editors in the Wiki Discord. Remember that doxing is both illegal and immoral. The true and honest statements only whenever it comes to these sorts of videos. Phone numbers, home addresses, and confidential information should be omitted from this page. The subject of or contents of Daniel Larson are potentially offensive and or controversial. Viewer discretion is advised. Daniel Larson may have non-archive videos on the page. While they will be removed from this page, they may be removed from the host website and make this video inaccessible. Please help us by archiving videos on archive.com. Meanwhile, Daniel Larson has been deemed to be an unreliable narrator for the following reasons. First, he is a diagnosed schizophrenic. Among several other mental health issues, Daniel is prone to delusional thinking and has a hard time differentiating what is and what is not real. Also, Daniel has a history of compulsive lying. 3. Daniel will often exaggerate things that happened, often to make himself look better. And 4th, Daniel's accounts on how certain events play out vary each time he recalls them. Bear this in mind and think before taking their statements at face value. Which is something you have to keep in mind anytime Daniel Larson gets brought into the zeitgeist once again. But whatever, you have been warned. And by the way, for reasons we'll get into, schizophrenic is, well, or schizophrenia is just the tip of the iceberg. Hello, this is Daniel Larson. I'm not saying he's a finished job, he's got more work to do, but he's a much different child than he was when he first came here. Nancy Schimmer about a young Daniel Larson. And for reference, this is Daniel Larson as of August 2026. But that's just what he looks like today, because he was quite different back in the day. Daniel Robert Larson, born November 5th, 1998, also known as Danderson, Mr. President, Danny Pooh, or Zuma Christian, is a 27-year-old mentally ill internet personality and convicted criminal who claims to be a singer-songwriter, celebrity, fashion model, and President of the United States. He also claims to be engaged to former America's Got Talent star Grace Vanderwaal, despite having never met her in person. In 2020, Daniel gained a sizable following due to his unusual style of content, unorthodox appearance, and erratic behavior. As Daniel's popularity increased, more and more people began to exploit his gullibility. Many of these trolls were inspired by the trolling of previous controversial internet personalities, seeing Daniel as the new Chris Chan or the new Terry A. Davies. To gain Daniel's attention and trust, trolls would pose as managers or employees of record labels, preying upon his delusions of fame and fortune. Daniel would fall for their ruses almost every single time, which only served to worsen his delusions of fame and fortune. These managers would have him constantly performing degrading acts and make him say embarrassing things on camera. The constant trolling resulted in Daniel having very high levels of paranoia, which would lead him to further spiral into lunacy. Daniel considers himself a celebrity, specifically a world famous musician that billions of people know, despite spending the majority of his adult life as a homeless vagrant. Despite this, Daniel managed to produce three studio recorded songs: Roaring Thunder, Something More, and Merry Go Round. His music is not what Daniel is most known for, as his TikToks showcase his disturbing meltdowns that garner far more attention. The primary reason behind his behavior is attributed to the several mental health disorders he is afflicted with, and his unwillingness to receive treatment for them. As of 2026, Daniel Larson is confirmed to have the following: autism, bipolar disorder, PTSD, and most notably, schizophrenia, which adds intense difficulty to his daily life. Now, some of you may be arguing to yourselves at this point that you could possibly explain one of these things away, but explaining all four at once, you would be forgiven in thinking that Daniel Larson never stood a chance. It goes a little bit further than that, but for reasons I've explained in the past and will continue to explain in the future, Daniel Larson probably should never have been allowed access to the internet, and it will become very, very clear as to why that is the case, but we'll come to that a bit later. Daniel's content is hosted on his many TikTok and YouTube accounts. Many of these accounts have been banned over the years, with the reasons for his bans varying greatly. In one notable instance, Daniel was banned from TikTok for exposing his genitalia on a live stream. Other reasons for his bans range from him admitting to being a PDF, the use of racial slurs, and assaults on himself and others, including his elderly mentor, Bob Proctor, as well as destruction of both public and private property. From 2021 onwards, Daniel faced many significant life-altering setbacks. He moved from house to house before becoming homeless, contracted scabies, threatened to end his premature mortal coil of Grace Vandervoort, adopted a dog, and had it then taken away, assaulted a bodega employee, attempted to enroll in college twice, pulled a fire alarm at an Olive Garden, faced arrests on multiple occasions, and became significantly more mentally ill when he first started posting online. However, in 2024, Daniel's life came to a turning point when he was arrested by the FBI for the numerous threats he made online regarding during his meltdowns. We will, at some point get to that stage, but to be honest, the biggest takeaway from stuff like that is that, well, you should probably, again, it's probably why it would have been better if Daniel stayed inside. I wish there was a nicer way of putting it, but there isn't. I'm sorry, guys, if you don't like to hear that, but there's no other way of putting it. Daniel should not have been allowed to leave. However, there has truly been no one like Daniel Larson. In short, Daniel's story is one that is not fated to have a happy ending, leaving his life as a tale of bad parenting, the effects of untreated mental illness, gullibility, narcissism, sexual deviancy, criminal activity, and most importantly, the world watching a man deteriorate day by day. As of present, Daniel has been released from prison after a total run of exactly 2 years, 2 months, and 21 days in federal custody. He is under probation, with federal authorities monitoring his devices for outside contacts while in private housing with a caretaker. And bear in mind, guys, that is just the introduction to the story. And if there's one thing to take away from this introduction, so to speak, is that, well, they weren't joking when they said that Daniel's life is going to have a very, very sad, tragic, but a somewhat predictable ending. Because if you looked at Daniel Larson's story, just through everything that we know of so far, from his early childhood to by the time he started posting on the internet, you're going to start to notice this pattern of, well, what else? What did anybody else expect was going to happen? And it's probably something that, I don't know if it's like the state of Colorado or anyone else who could have possibly have, hazard a guess of what was going to happen, they would have stopped Daniel literally years ago. But considering everything there is to talk about Daniel Larson, I probably wouldn't put it past some people to say, well, that's Daniel's own fault, and that we can't be held liable for neglecting responsibility towards someone who is probably terminally not of sound mind or body, and yet they still did it. And as we go through this, you'll start to understand exactly why I'm deeply concerned about the way this has turned out, or probably what's going to happen next. But what is going to happen next? Who can tell? But in the meantime, I hope all of you guys have learned something from being introduced to the mad world of Daniel Larson, and I will see all of you guys again next time.